Now, South Africans love their big cars, both for speed and as a status symbol. But with massive petrol and diesel price hikes expected next month, some are reconsidering. Many petrol heads are now even talking about trading in big cars for those that consume less fuel. Let's find out what you should know before trading in your car from motoring journalist Francisco Mwamba. Francisco, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. You know, we might be of the view that it possibly would make sense for people to downsize in these economic times, but trends could indicate something completely different. What have you observed to be the trend currently?
I think the biggest trend at the moment is exactly that, buying down. Many people are considering their vehicle options and they're looking at vehicles that are more affordable from a fuel perspective. We know that, as you mentioned there, South Africans, we love our big cars. But I think right now when many people find themselves in the purchasing decision, they are reconsidering buying cars that are a bit more expensive on fuel. So they're looking at vehicles that are a bit more smaller. We know many crossovers nowadays offer smaller capacity engines. So it does mean that's a bit better for the pocket for the consumer. But I think the trick that many people find themselves in is if they are already in a vehicle that is quite expensive to run. The problem comes in if you want to trade it in for a car that is a bit more efficient, you might find yourself in a sticky situation where you have a shortfall. So I think timing is of the essence if you're going to be looking at selling your vehicle. So definitely you need to consider if you're going to be losing money if you're going to sell your car now, or if you need to wait a little bit for the settlements to actually balance out, because most times people find themselves in more trouble if they're trying to sort out a settlement issue that they can't afford. It just exasperates the situation a bit better. But in the meantime, there are some fuel saving tips to use should you be looking to save fuel with your current vehicle.
So take us through those fuel saving tips.
So one of the things that us South Africans are known for is that we can be a little bit heavy-footed. So one of the biggest advice that we give people is slow down. One of the major factors of why you're using more fuel is because potentially you are driving slightly faster than the speed limit. So considering your driving habits and having an economy mindset when it comes to driving is extremely important. So always making sure that you're in a higher gear, you're not over-revving your vehicle, braking beforehand so that you don't have to late brake, because all these factors come into play when it comes to just driving a bit more economically. So another factor that we also consider at the same time is just how people use their vehicles from a speed perspective. As we know, like you said, we do like to speed a little bit. So one of the major factors is obviously slowing down and also maintaining your vehicle. That's a very crucial thing as well. Cars that are not maintained properly are generally more heavy on fuel. So making sure that your day-to-day maintenance of the vehicle is done correctly, and making sure that when you drive, first and foremost, be safe on the roads, and at the same time, it will be better for your pockets just to slow down a bit better as you're driving. So that's the first thing I tell most consumers.
So let's reduce our speed, and I mean it is the safer option in general. But then talk to me about this whole debate about new versus second-hand insofar as fuel consumption is concerned. Which consumes more?
So it's actually quite an interesting one, because depending on the used vehicle that you buy, if you're going to buy a used vehicle that has been properly maintained, it's still within a maintenance or service plan, chances are you're going to get very similar economy to buying a new car. I think the advantage that many people have with buying a used vehicle is that they benefit with a better price. But at the same time, currently we are sitting with a lot of global shortages within the new car market. So inevitably what that has done is that it's driven the prices quite high for the used cars at the same time. So what I would advise a lot of people to do now is to look at brands that are quite popular in the used markets, because the higher the demand, the better you're going to be when it comes to trading in your vehicle. And at the same time, we know that when it comes to the smaller cars, South Africans do love the likes of your Polos and your i10s. The smaller vehicles are definitely the way to go if you're looking for something a bit more fuel savvy. And at the same time, we know that in the used market, those vehicles still tend to be more affordable, whereas more expensive cars, whether they are new or used, they still can hurt your pocket. So rather buy for an economy mindset as opposed to buying for your status symbol, because we know that South Africans, we love to link car with the car that we drive.
But we all know that the used market does not come without any problems itself. Just take us through some of the things we need to look out for in this market.
Sure. One of the major factors is, of course, buying from an accredited dealership. We know that there are many platforms out there that are very good for consumers to look for secondhand vehicles. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be looking at a Voetstoets type of platform, you can run into a situation, if you're not happy with the vehicle, there's no recourse. There's no one to go back to and say, please take back this car. Whereas if you're buying from a vehicle, if you're buying for a dealership rather, you do have more protection on your side as a consumer, because we know that unfortunately in the world that we live in today, many people can get caught up in a scam when it comes to buying used vehicles. So I'd say be savvy, make sure you see the vehicle in person, make sure it is an accredited dealership, and make sure at the same time that the vehicle that you are looking to purchase, you've driven it at the same time. Many people take it for face value. They see a good deal online and they want to jump on it and they have to pay deposits. And at the end of the day, it's better just to slow down the situation and really just think about it clearly, because we know that these decisions are going to last us the next 2 to 3 years, some of us even longer. So buying a vehicle isn't a very important one. So you need to make sure that you do your homework before, and making sure that the vehicle also hasn't been in an accident, and that it's been maintained correctly. Because if all those things haven't been done prior, we know that we can find ourselves in quite a tricky situation with the vehicle that you purchased that you're not happy with.
When you talk Voetstoet, the first thing that pops up to mind, in my mind at least, is auctions. So meaning you're warning against auctions here, because in this instance, you wouldn't have either the service history, you take it as is, and then would it be better perhaps after an auction to take it to a dealership to be assessed to see that everything is okay?
So I wouldn't say that auctions are a bad thing whatsoever. Nowadays, the auction system in South Africa has become quite sophisticated, that you can preview the vehicle online before. You can check the DECRA report to see if the vehicle's been in an accident. I think the Voetstoets clause really more applies to people who are buying their vehicles from private individuals. So what happens in that instance is that if you sign an agreement to buy your vehicle from an individual, they're not a dealership, they're not a registered business. So should something go wrong, you can't really go and go back to the person and say, I want my money back. They are generally protected by that clause to say that it is what it is. Essentially, you're buying the vehicle as is. So that's where I say you'd rather go to an accredited dealership or an establishment rather that does protect you from the consumer, knowing that should you not be happy, the CPA can protect you, and at the same time you can give back the vehicle, or you can actually just follow up on something that you're not happy about, rather than buying a vehicle from a private sale. If you do go for a private sale, you can still protect yourself, you can still make sure that there are contracts in place, but obviously it just requires more effort from the consumer. So for ease of use, rather give yourself the peace of mind and buy from a reputable place, whether it's an auction or it's an online site or it's a physical dealership, as long as it's reputable, and they're not going to go back and say we can't take the vehicle back, because we know that that is a very difficult situation to deal with.
No, most certainly nobody wants to go through that. Francisco, thank you very much for your insights. That was motoring journalist Francisco Nwamba.